another Wednesday, 2 weeks since the last episode, and you've got another 3 questions, so I suppose the right thing to do would be to answer them. Let's get to it. Dan Williams asks, Dan Williams even asks, have you seen any of the SummerSlam highlights, or more specifically, Bray Wyatt's in-ring debut as The Fiend in his fight with Finn Balor? If so, thoughts? I saw the ring entrance, along with the updated theme of Bray Wyatt's theme. I didn't think he could get any creepier. I was clearly proven wrong. I didn't see the fight. I know that he's fought Finn before, but this clearly probably did some numbers, and considering how poorly Bray Wyatt's character had been handled ever since he dropped the WWE title to Randy Orton at WrestleMania 33, it did question as to where Bray could go, but it seems to be on the up. I didn't see SummerSlam. I saw highlights of Trish versus Charlotte, and Trish in her farewell match proved she could still go, and then some. But I didn't watch the pay-per-view because I only really tune in now just for WrestleMania. I didn't tune in for the Rumble, and from what I heard, it wasn't really worth anything to write home about, other than Becky Lynch rightfully winning the Women's Royal Rumble. But as for SummerSlam, I have no opinion over it. Sorry, dude. Question from the Co92. What are your thoughts on the current situation going on between Disney and Sony over the Spider-Man film rights? I think there's bad on both sides. I think Sony are being too ambitious and greedy for asking for a 95-5 split, but via the same token, Disney are not doing themselves any favors by demanding 50% earnings that Sony would make from their own movies, because they have the cinematic rights to all future Spider-Man movies. And, the deal was, in order for Spidey to be in the MCU, is that Disney would make the profits from things like Captain America Civil War, and anytime Spider-Man showed up in an Avengers movie, but Disney would not take any money from the Sony-produced movies, so Homecoming, Far From Home, only Sony get the money for that. So it's difficult to say, and I won't be going to see the next Spider-Man MCU movie, provided there is one, if they get this resolved, because, again, where do you go from Endgame? Iron Man's not there, Captain America's not there, I have no reason to care. If Spidey does leave the MCU indefinitely and goes back to just Sony producing the movies, it's going to be another reboot, which we don't need for Spider-Man. Spider-Man, quite possibly, is the biggest Marvel character in the company's existence. I mean, yes, Iron Man is probably considered one of the biggest household names because of the MCU movies, and by extension, the great performances of Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. But when you look at specific mascot characters for companies, you look at DC, it may be Superman that founded it, but it's Batman that made DC Comics a household name. Sonic the Hedgehog, even though he took over from Alex Kidd as the mascot, he is the face of Sega. And the same thing for with Dark Horse Comics. Hellboy is the face of Dark Horse. So I don't know how it's going to end up. I would just like to believe that if Sony do go back to rebooting Spidey yet again, which personally I hope they don't, because no one really wants to go through another situation with Amazing 2, because I felt like with the Amazing Spider-Man series, I felt like it was going somewhere. It felt like it was leading to something possibly promising, and then the numbers just weren't good enough and the rug was pulled out. Reboot number 2. So, on one hand, I'd like there to be a compromise made where both parties can be happy. But in terms of the movie business and considering how greedy both sides are, I don't see it happening. Those are my thoughts. And third and final question, and surprise, surprise, is from Kryptonite Cal with another lengthy question. I shall try to get through this as best as I can. If either John Wesley Shipp, who shares the same birthday as me, which is January 22nd, not sure if I would be putting this information on the net, just saying. Grant Gustin or Ezra Miller, who is a New Jersey native just like me, makes a cameo appearance as a man who looks just like Barry Allen from the Flash franchise in any possible sequel to the upcoming Sonic film, and his possible cameo scene involves him walking on the streets of Station Square, and then Sonic, who would be either chasing Robotnik or running away Robotnik at this point in the film, runs by him so fast it causes him to stop in amazement and shock and say something like, "Huh, and I thought I was the fastest man alive," or something like that. How would you react to that in some shape or form? Do you think it will convince DC and IDW to actually do a Sonic the Hedgehog Flash crossover comic book graphic novel? I don't think for 1 second that they'll get Ezra Miller or any other actor that has done a live-action adaptation of The Flash, simply because Paramount and original film studios just won't have that in the budget to bring him in as a cameo for Sonic the Hedgehog, considering this movie is already operating on a limited budget of $90 million, which, 25 to 30 years ago, $90 million was considered like, that was an infinite amount of money to make movies with. Nowadays, it's chump change. When you look at the detailing of how much CG costs and how much they put into special and visual effects now, 90 million, you have to spend that money accordingly, and you have to do it in a way whereby you get every cent of that budget used to the fullest, rather than just spending it aimlessly. I think what would be more interesting and appropriate is if you have a situation where Jaleel White, who is the voice actor for Sonic the Hedgehog for 3 animated movies, including the Eddie LeBron fan movie, was to just suddenly walk across the screen, and I've said this quite a few times on past SKLs, maybe even said this on a couple of end of year specials, for Jim just to walk across on camera, see something happen with Robotnik, who, just acting vile, malicious, or something bad happens to Sonic, and just for him to walk across and go, "Oh, that's no good," in the style that he did in the Sonic Says skit. So that, I think, would be more interesting and appropriate, because it's also it's also a wink to the fans to be like, "Hey, I know that guy. He was from Adventures of. He was from Sat AM. He was from Underground." Yes. So I don't see that happening with Sonic and the Flash. Whether they could do an IDW DC comic book crossover with Sonic and the Flash is certainly an interesting pairing, because if we can get Batman teaming up with the Ninja Turtles for not once, twice, but now a third comic book outing, along with the first crossover movie that they did earlier this year, then why not? You know, we're getting Power Rangers versus the Turtles again in IDW, but this time done right. Because nobody wants to talk about next mutations. No. Especially Venus. Anyway, because even when they went to do the 2007 TMNT movie, I think it was either Kevin Eastman or Peter Laird actually said to someone, don't mention Venus. Because here's the thing with that character. I don't have any negative feelings or hatred towards the character. I mean, at the time, when I saw the series, I thought it was an interesting take. But she is not well received by a lot of fans, and the fact that the creators don't want to even acknowledge her, that's clearly saying something. But yeah, that's where we stand with that. So, long story short, don't see Ezra Miller being in the movie as a cameo. It would be cool if he would, but I don't see it happening. And as for the comic book, yeah, why not? You know, stranger things have happened. I'd like to see a Knight Rider Jurassic Park crossover, but I know that's just wishful thinking on my part. Anyhow, those have been your 3 questions for this week. You know how the shtick works by now. Leave a question in the comment section below, leave one on Twitter, or heck, you know, leave a question on the website, dynamicnight.com. But until then,